Welcome back to the Flat Earth Podcast. I am Rick Flat, your host through this strange time on the Earth. If you want to know anything more about the Flat Earth Podcast, head on over to theflatearthpodcast.com. Make sure you put two T's in with flat, otherwise you'll go to a whole other website that you won't like that. There you'll find blogs, previous episodes, link to the Spotify audio channel, and also a little PayPal button on there. If you want to give to the channel, it's a great way to support us. All money will go to lights and camera lenses, recording material. I don't know. It will fund the health of the channel. So feel free to give if you like what I'm doing. Like, go ahead, man. Every time you give money, I will let you know. I'll say thanks, and I'll say this is what I bought. It's pretty simple, man. You know, I will buy caviar and weekends in Vegas as well, but mainly stuff for the studio. What else is going on before we get into the business? YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, press the little bell icon, select all, get involved in the comments, throw the episodes over to friends if you like them. What other news is there? I've got a new desk. Well, it's not so much a new desk, it's an old desk. I built this desk, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and it's lived in my kitchen. It's been the dining room table, but my wife got a bit antsy the other week and said, what about a dining room table? I don't know that one you built. So here I am now in a studio with a slightly wider, slightly longer table, and I'm enjoying it. I use this on our other channel, the ABC of EDC, which is the home of everything everyday carry. We review tech, tools, jewelry, all sorts, anything you carry, anything that carries you. So if you want to check that out, like I say, there'll be a link to like the introductory video thing up there. Anyway, I don't know about you, but man, it's a strange time. It's a really strange time at the moment. If you feel it in the atmosphere, it feels kind of like people are a little bit on edge, people are a little bit down, a little bit low. There's that sort of low level of in the air. And the weather's turning. Today's like the proper first like cold day. It's been a bit rainy for a couple of weeks, but it's proper cold now. What's going on? What's going on? I mean, I know you might watch the news or not. You might have your favourite people that you listen to for information on world events and things. And you probably know a few of the flagship things that are going on. War and inflation and all that. But what's really going on? Because these things have existed before. There's been summers of discontent, winters of discontent. There's been recessions. There's been financial hiccups. There's been conflicts before. Since since we've existed, these things have happened. But why right now do you feel so drained? Why do I feel so exhausted by it all? I've spoken about this in part before, and I just want to quickly outline something I've been thinking about, a way I've been thinking about what's been going on. But if I can sum up where I feel we're at, or why I personally, and I guess I can only really talk to me, why I feel a little bit disappointed with life at the moment, modern life, it's because there seems to be a worldwide lack of leadership principles. It's not that we haven't got leaders. There are still prime ministers and presidents and kings and queens and I was about to say earls, but I guess there still are earls. Anyway, there's still people. You've still got a boss at work. Maybe if you're a boss, maybe you are a boss, you know. There's still the structures involved, but it seems to be a lack of principle, or certainly a lack of displayed principles in the world. For instance, it's bang on, it's 1:10 right now, Monday. England are playing, I think, their first game right now. I think they're kicking off right now. And there's been a big furore because when it was announced that the World Cup would be held in Qatar, suddenly everyone started freaking out. What a country with disgusting human rights record, how they treat the gay and lesbian people. They're just so non-LGBT, and they built a stadium and they built it with the blood of the workers. And it's terrible, and what they're going to do, and we shouldn't go there, and it shouldn't have got it. But money wins, like it always does, and whoever paid whoever to pay whoever meant that, you know, lo and behold, their name got drawn out of the hat or whatever. It's in Qatar. Deal with it, right? Oh, table creaks a bit. I think we'll have to sort that table out a little bit. Anyway, so the England team said, look,
we don't feel comfortable. Our principles tell us we don't feel comfortable playing without commenting on the treatment of gay, lesbian, LGBTQY #__rainbow #1125. All the numbers, all the letters. We don't feel good about the treatment of them, so we're going to wear a One Love armband. It's a rainbow armband, and this armband is going to represent the fact that we believe in all people, can love all people, can love all people, right?
And I don't know what's actually happened over in Qatar as of like 5 minutes ago, but this morning, I think the governing body stepped in, and Harry Kane, who was the captain of the England team, was going to stand up for these principled rights for these people to be able to be who they are. They kind of said, look, you know, we want you to win the game, and what if you'll get a yellow card straight away if you put it. So he went, oh yeah, fuck that. And they just dushed that. Just as soon as he heard like you'll get a yellow card, so you might be a bit behind in a game of kicking a ball around, he ripped the One Love armband off. He threw it across the freaking changing room, and that's it. We're done. Harry Kane, like later LGBT. I'm good because I need to put this round ball of air in a square box. So I know they're throwing you off roofs and doing all sorts of stuff, but you know, catch me with that stuff later. But they did say that the team are still going to take a knee. Now, I don't know why. What is that about? What are you taking a knee for? What does that signify? I don't understand. I understood, I think, the context a while ago with what taking a knee meant stateside and stuff, but I don't understand what this takes now. But I don't know if they've even taken a knee, so I'm not really sure what's going on. But again, just a small microcosm of leadership that claimed to have principles, and then when money stepped in and other authorities and a possible loss of something, we were like, nah. So, Harry Kane's like, I've got to wear this love band, man, but I've got to wear this One Love armband to represent all the people under the LGBT, under that banner, who aren't able to be who they are. And then FIFA comes in, but yeah, what if you get a yellow card and we might lose a game of football? Oh yeah, dash that. Yeah, whatever. I'm out. But I will take a knee. Why? Because leadership without principle, you see it elsewhere. There's just weird stuff going on all around. But I want to talk mainly about the UK because I live in the UK, so like I can only really talk about this place, right? And I want to kind of talk about this lack of principled leadership, or what's going on with our kind of leadership. And I want to talk about it using an illustration of an airplane. So picture, if you will, a giant airplane, like one of those Airbuses. You know, it's got 3 floors, massive wingspan, 100 wheels. It's just it's like flying a massive building with wings. Picture one of those things, right? You see it there. It's got a cockpit. It's got the main body. Whatever the main bit. I was about to say fuselage. Is that what you call it? Anyway, the main body of the plane. It's got a right wing, a left wing, a tail, all that sort of stuff. Big, massive plane. Now, imagine that plane represents a country. And everyone on board, the passengers, are the inhabitants of whatever country you're talking about, okay? So within the cabin, you've got a few different areas, I'd say. You've got the right wing, the left wing, and the centre. You see where I'm going? This is the kind of thing you tune in for. This kind of like political analogies, just amazing. So you've got the right wing, left wing, you've got the centre. And that's kind of like where people would say... Generally, that's the envelope we put on people's political views, their life views. You're either right wing and that's labelled one particular way. You're either left wing, that's labelled one particular way. Or you're central, or you're centre left, or you're centre right, or you're centre, whatever, man. You know what I mean? Either way, you've got these, in society, you've got these different groupings, right? And the people on the right wing say, look, come look out our window. You should see things outside the right wing. You should see what's going on. You can look at the mountain range this way. We'll show you how life is really done. The people on the left wing say, no, come over here, man. Look out this window. This will show you. Look, you can see the ravines and the map of the earth. This is how you do it. Our view's the best way. And the people in the centre try and stay in the centre. They like a little bit of what's out that window. They like a little bit out of that window, but they're not committed to either. They just want to be in the centre. They're busy. They're doing other things. You might say that's a sort of an analogy of how people are in life. You all know a right-wing person, someone who's a bit more like the supposed right-wing things, you know, borders, immigration, stuff like that. You know more the left-wing people, like the LGBT, the do what you want, and no taxes, no borders. I know these are massive, horrible generalizations, but this is what happens when you have to talk about whole countries. You have to generalize, it gets so big. Then you've got the centre, and the centre you might say people inhabit a very neutral or more civilized kind of view. So imagine that, you got that on the plane, right? Then you've got the cabin crew. The cabin crew. Now, they go up and down the aisle. around the centre aisle, on the left wing and the right wing, and they're looking to serve the people on board. Now, you might say these are public services. So my wife's a teacher, for instance, but she doesn't agree with everything, the whole concept, the way our government wants teaching to go, but she understands teaching kids is important, so she does it. And then you've got doctors, then you've got nurses and firemen and police and army. They're supposed to be maybe apolitical, but they work within a system that's guarded by politics, but they're serving the people, right? So you have the cabin crew that go up and down, but within that you also have organizations, leaders, movements that aren't that are private sector, if you like. So at the moment, food banks, for instance, in this country, a massive inflation, massive fuel crisis, people are really struggling, wages are low, costs are high. So we have got amazing people doing amazing work with food banks. And the disturbing thing is, I used to run a food bank years ago. I worked for a church and I started a food bank called Feed, and it's gone on to be an amazing food bank now because it's run by people who actually knew what they were doing. I just started it, but I didn't really know what to do with it. And that was years ago, and there was need then. But now there's crazy need, and the crazy thing now is that people who are in full-time work are finding themselves still having to go to food banks to get soup, pasta and toiletries because inflation's so high, the cost of living's so high. Anyway, so you got these people, left wing, right wing, centre, and you got the people serving the aisle, right? But this is a double-decker plane as well. So I don't know if you've ever been on one of these big planes. I've never been on one where there's like the poor second-class economy downstairs, down and back, and then maybe front, but certainly upstairs, you've got like, okay, big money makers. They got their own rooms up there. They got a room with a bed and a sofa and a shower, like a suite or whatever. They've got a 24-hour bar. They have different food up there. They're on the same plane as you, but they might as well be on a different plane because they don't know your troubles, man. They're not having to buy it. They're not having to like get those tiny little rations of peanuts that you get when you're on a flight. They're not having to put up with the woman with the baby who's just been born next to you. They're not having to put up with the big guy who really should have booked 2 seats but booked 1 seat, but basically he's on your seat as well. They don't have to put up with any of that. They live in a whole different life. They're in the same plane, and you might say the same country in our analogy, but they might as well be different. These people live in a rarefied air, totally different treatment. The people downstairs, the cabin crew, might just say to you like, just eat your freaking peanuts and shut your mouth. Upstairs it's like, okay sir, we have a selection of wines and le foie gras, and we have caviar, and what kind of slippers do you want? And we've got some socks for you. I once sidebar, I once scored like a free upgrade to business class on my way back from America, and it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I had my own little thing, little bed that went flat, and I couldn't believe it. They come round, they give you your own socks and slippers, they give you constant drinks and attentive and a menu with actual choices. It was amazing, and that was just business class. That wasn't like crazy. So the plane is that country. Let's say it's the UK. So the plane's the UK, left wing, right wing, centre, cabin crew, upper class, first class, business, whatever, the big money makers who live in the same area, but they're living very differently. They're living very, very differently to the rest of us. Then you've got the pilot and the co-pilot, the flight crew, I guess. You've got the cabin crew, you've got the flight crew. I don't know how many people it is. My brother-in-law is a commercial pilot. I should know more, I guess, but you got the pilot in there. Okay, now this is where I want to talk a little bit about leadership and principles, because I think I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I got like a beanie hat on here because it's cold, but you maybe you've got to imagine I've got a little bit of a tin hat coming into this particular moment in this situation right here. When it comes to this analogy, and when it comes to the pilot and the co-pilot, this is where I think I want to talk more about leadership without principles. I don't know if you've ever been on a plane where there's been a bit of rough skies, a bit of turbulence, and you get that moment, don't you, where, at a certain point you hear like, boom.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have on radar a small bit of turbulence coming up, so the seatbelt light is on. Please restore your trays to upright position. We should pass through this quite quickly, and we're en route. Weather is good in our destination, but please obey all cabin commands, and we'll get through this turbulence as quick as we can. Thank you.
But you know what I'm saying? You get that kind of... You ever been on that flight where there's a bit of turbulence, man? It's a weird thing, man. Turbulence on a plane, because suddenly you're sat there. You just like... It's weird, like the... It's an aerial earthquake is what it is, because the thing you're on, what you feel is solid, the plane, it just drops like a stone, and then kind of it's a very weird sensation, man. So sometimes you get this on a flight. There's turbulence, right? Now we have been in a turbulent time, particularly here in the UK, but everywhere I imagine, America, Australia, whoever, man, like you fill in the blank. We've been in turbulent times, but I wonder sometimes if some of this turbulence isn't false turbulence. And I think it comes from leadership with no principles or leadership with ulterior motives. This became maybe underlined for me here in the UK just last week when we had our kind of autumn budget. So Rishi Roland Rat Sunak, our Prime Minister.
Yes, fans, I'm back.
Who's basically like, he's like the school prefect everyone wanted to punch. He's that guy. You know, he's got like the body of a 13-year-old and the head of like some sort of circus performer. He's a very strange kind of looking man and very strange mannerisms, and you know, I'm sure he's a great guy and he knows how to cut up a Cornish pasty and drink a pint, but he looks strange. He comes across as a weird guy, and part of that is because he is someone from the higher echelons, man. He's married to a billionairess. He's a multi-millionaire himself. He's got more money technically in his kind of family situation than the king, which is interesting. And we also have a chancellor here in the UK. We have the chancellor of the Exchequer, basically the one who sets all the budget, the MP in charge of all the coffers. And we have a guy called Jeremy Hunt. It's Jeremy Hunt. And this garbled fucknut and his fiscal wankery is just a sight to behold. Just amazing. In the middle of massive inflation, massive fuel costs, just a budget just crazy. Now, I know it's probably all right for some people. I spoke to my mum and dad the other day, pensioners. It did them quite well. I don't know if you're on benefits, it might have done some well. But for the majority of us in this middle part, this was a nightmare. One thing in particular, right? So we're in the middle of massive inflation, right? And there's lots of causes for inflation. I understand this. And again, I'm not the guy who you come to for financial advice. I'm barely doing sums. I'm asking Siri all the time what's going on. You know what I mean? But I understand one thing, that partly inflation comes when costs of transporting goods goes up. And I understand that costs of transporting goods goes up when, why am I doing this with my hand? Goes up when fuel costs increase. So everything gets delivered from one place to another in our world, right? And every vehicle of delivery is ran on some kind of fuel, and fuel costs money. So sneakily, without telling anyone, although he got caught and he's been found out, it's been well known now, but without mentioning in his budget, at a time of massive crisis where the news for months has been about the price of fuel, the price of costing, like heating your home and stuff, in the middle of that, he decided that he was going to increase fuel duty for the fuel. Man, what is wrong? Why is this not working? Why is this thing not working? What's going on? He decided that he would increase fuel duty by 12p, which means for every litre of diesel that I buy for my car, which is already £2, which is a lot, 12p more will now be charged, at least 12p, from March next year. And they snuck this in without telling anyone, without even mentioning it. So you're trying to bring inflation down, yet one of the ways you bring inflation down is to bring the cost of transporting goods down. So what you do is you increase your government tariff, your government duty, what you take, you increase the price of that by 12p on fuel which is needed to transport goods. Therefore, you're raising inflation. What the hell is going on? I looked at that, I scratched my head, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I stood there watching the budget, watching Jeremy Hunt, watching Jeremy Hunt, watching Jeremy Hunt spew out this budget, watching Rishi Roland Rat Sunak behind him, smiling and nodding, and realising that Jeremy Hunt was saying we've got to pay for the fact that we put all these people on furlough because of COVID. COVID did this. And I look back and I'm looking around Jeremy Hunt and I'm going, Rishi, you decided to pay everyone. You decided to print money, to give money away to everyone. Yet now, a couple of years later, now we need to tighten our belts. You couldn't have tightened your belt before now, Rish. When you had the coffers. Nah, bruv, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it, son. But now we're having to tighten it. I watched Jeremy give money and say we are going to invest in the NHS. Do you understand the history of this man? This man did a lot of harm to the NHS when he was previously in roles. Did a lot of harm. So basically, he's decided to put a little bit of money in to fix some of the problems that he made in the first place. Anyway, I'm digressing into strange rants about particular governments here, and I don't want to get into that, man, because I don't want to be on the left side or the right side or whatever the plane. I'm just saying, no principles. I think that a lot of the turbulence we're seeing now, I think a lot of the financial crisis we're in with inflation and interest rates is false turbulence. I think it's cunts in the cockpit who are saying there's natural turbulence coming, get ready, it's going to cost us. But I think if you could see through those guarded doors into where the controls are, you'd see them with their hand on like the control stick thing and just doing this, just steering it about. Because let's face it, we're not in some naturally occurring financial crisis right now. We are in the aftermath of a mismanagement of funds through COVID, through furlough, through a million things. Let's face it, Putin and Ukraine, as dastardly as he may be, as horrible as that war might be, right, that conflict, that is not causing all of this, because this all began before that began. This comes from a lack of leadership principles, of saying you believe one thing. I'm going to wear the armband. I'm going to look after you as a country. Don't worry. We're here for you. But then not. So what do we do? What are the options here? Do we rush the cockpit? Try and grab the Prime Minister, grab the Chancellor? Is that what we do? And here's the thing. Like, firstly, no, we don't do that. But here's the other thing. Let me sidebar. I'm really worried, and I think that's going to happen. I think we're heading here in the UK to massive social unrest. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm not saying I want it, but I can see it coming. For a couple of reasons, people are squeezed beyond compare at the moment. I think we'll get through Christmas because everyone loves Christmas. You drink some sherry and beer and you see your friends, eat some food, watch some telly. But then the bills for Christmas come in January and February. Things don't get better. It's dark. It's dank. I think there's going to be major civil unrest. I don't think people can be pushed much further. And I worry that people's anger will be directed at MPs. I think there will be some people that rush the cockpit, thinking that by doing something there it will solve something. It won't. Because I think although some of the actions that have caused our problems come from that cockpit, come from our politicians, our leaders, our prime ministers, our presidents, the actions come from there, but I think the inspiration comes from somewhere else. You see, when you're flying a plane, when a plane is in flight from one place to another, it's not just all about the plane, and it's not just all about the passengers and the pilot. There's a ground team where you take off that clear you for takeoff. Then there's a ground team where your destination is, and they have to clear you to land. And they, in some ways, have a lot of control. If there's ever a problem on a runway, ever a problem with logistics somehow on the ground where you're landing, they will put you in that, they stack planes. I don't know if you've ever seen a stack of planes. I'm not far here from, I'm not far from like Luton Airport, and I guess, we've got Stansted and Gatwick and Heathrow and stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen planes when they're stacked up, when there's some issue on runways for some reason, or something's happened somewhere and there's a lot of planes that are not been scheduled, and they just stack them up and they spin around. The ground crew are vitally important. They decide where you land, if you land. And it's my opinion right now, as you look at the world, there are lots of leaders who they seem a bit iffy. And I don't know, you noticed this a lot during the COVID time. Numerous leaders in entirely different continents, mouth is just not working today, we're all saying the same thing. And I don't mean like generally, I mean exactly the same thing.
To build back better.
Build back better.
It's about building this country back better.
Build it back better.
We must build back better.
Build back better.
To build back better.
To build back better.
Build back better.
Build back better.
A unique opportunity to reset our global agenda.
An unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
Like little catchphrases, like the same person had phoned them and said, don't forget to say this. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's a time for a new world order. You hear these people repeating and repeating. My opinion is this, and I don't want to get crazy. I think, yeah, we've got politicians. I think they're out for themselves. I think they're largely just trying to keep their jobs. You've got people on the right and the left. They're busy trying to do their thing. Some people in the middle. I think you've got some ground crew. You've got some cabin crew that are just trying to serve people and do their thing. But I think the people we should be worried about that we'll never target and we'll never know who they are because they're the big, massive money movers in the earth. I think they're the ground crews. They're the people in the towers who are deciding the big shifts away from a cash society. Shifts towards a credit-based society. I think these people, these ground crews, are the ones maybe we should worry about, but they're a little bit more invisible. Their voice doesn't come over the system talking about turbulence. We don't get to see them come on and off the plane every 4 years or whenever we vote for them. It's interesting. So what do? You can't rush the cabin crew because the cockpit crew because nothing going to happen now. Okay, maybe you don't even know the ground crew are, man. We see these people like your Bill Gateses and your Elons and like for instance, there you go. So any country can set their policies around electric cars, for instance. But who's driving that? Sorry, pun. What Elon does with Tesla will decide the future of electric cars, not what Rishi Sunak decides about whether I should have an electric car or not. Because Elon's the one that's in the background putting billions in and infrastructure and technology. You understand? So there's things behind the scenes here we're not seeing. Anyway, so what do you do in this moment? You're depressed, you're angry, you're worried about your family, you're worried about you got to go to food bank, you're struggling, you're worried about mortgage payments or remortgaging or just living. You've got Christmas coming up, you've got kids you want to buy stuff for, you've got aging relatives, you've got young whatever. What do you do? Here's what I do. And this is just me. I make sure, no matter where I'm positioned in the plane, no matter whether I'm feeling a little right wing, left wing, centre, whether I'm angry with the people in the cockpit, whether I'm just ignoring the cacophony of their daily bullshit or not, I make sure that at all times I have a parachute firmly attached to my shoulders, around my waist, that when the plane goes down, because it will, and when the pilots are gone, they desert, which they will, and the ground crew don't want to help, which at some point they won't, I'm good. When I was 17, I began to pray and ask God to do stuff in my life, and he did. I'm now 46. And I've lived all my years since that day praying and trying to understand how to walk with God. And in the midst of that, I've realized that people come and go, governments come and go, different powers come and go, good times come, they go, bad times come, they go, money comes, it goes. Sometimes health is good, sometimes health is bad. Sometimes you're enjoying life, sometimes you're down in the pit. But in all those times for me, I walk with God. I realised that one day there'll be no plane, no countries. One day there'll be no presidents, there'll be no prime ministers, there'll be no chancellors. One day there'll be no interest rates, no mortgages. One day there'll be no food banks because everyone will be fed. And I put my faith in the thing outside of all of these temporary things. And I put my faith, in my opinion, in someone whose leadership is brimming with principles that never get neglected for a perk. I put my trust in someone who had principles, and when it came to suffer a price to maintain the principle, he went to the cross. That's what I do. That's what I do. You got to do what you got to do. But for me, that's where I stand. And at the moment, the fight right now is to not so remove yourself from the daily functions of the world as we know it that you live as a fool, but not be so engrossed in it that you live angry, that you live frustrated and confused. And it's quite the balancing act. It really is quite. And I don't know exactly if I'm doing it well or not, but I know one day all these things will pass, and there'll be the God who created everything, and there'll be humanity. And at that point, there'll be a different set of options. And there'll be a different set of choices. And they won't be forced on us. But maybe for the first time in a long time, maybe from all time, we'll have a choice that matters. Anyway, that's me. I don't know if the plain illustration helped. I don't know if my ranting helped, man. I don't know nothing about nothing other than it's cold in the studio. So I'm going to go inside, catch a little bit of this England match, see what's going on. Bless you guys, and I'll see you next time. Later.